Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls Remastered PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we are taking a look at the Flamberge, which is one that you can get from either the Serpent men who wield it, or you can buy it from Shiva of the East, which is easily the easier way of getting the weapon. Now, getting started with the basics, this weapon requires 16 strength and 14 dexterity in order to wield. At plus 5 it has a D scaling in strength and a C scaling in dexterity, and its base damage is 150. At plus 10, the scalings have remained unchanged, but its base damage is 200, and at plus 15, your D scaling in strength is the same. You have a B scaling in dexterity now, and on top of that, your base damage is 250. So, overall, this weapon I find to be somewhat interesting just due to the way that the base damage increases 50 every 5 levels. I don't know, minor thing, I just think it's kind of neat. That said, moving on to the pros from here. This weapon is amazing at doing combos, and that is easily the biggest pro of this weapon. So just to give you one for the sake of an example, your two-handed running attack, if that staggers your opponent, you can actually follow that up with an R2. And that is kind of a phenomenal thing. Normally, with a greatsword you can go two-handed running attack, do an R1 maybe, but going from that into an R2, it doesn't look like the timing would be there, but it is, and that'll get you a little extra damage on top of the normal combo. And that's great. On top of that, even still, is the fact that this weapon does have bleed buildup, which is really another phenomenal thing with this weapon. It does deal 36 bleed buildup per hit, and will drain your opponent's health by 30%. So, that's always helpful, that's always good. It puts a little bit of extra pressure on them, and seeing that meter build up can sort of stress someone out, so it makes them panic a little bit more than it normally would. And of course, this weapon does have some decent base damage and decent scaling, so the damage output is good enough as it is. So overall, this thing is kind of phenomenal. It's a great weapon for dexterity builds, it's a great weapon for them to utilize, and it's a good weapon for them to buff as well if you're working on some sort of hybrid build where you'll be using intelligence or faith in order to augment your capabilities. Simply due to the fact that it only requires 16 strength and 14 dexterity, it doesn't need overly much, so when it comes to those hybrid builds, this is a good candidate for a greatsword to use. Now, moving into the cons of the weapon, there's not too terribly many of them. You've got your standard greatsword cons, which is that running attacks are something that people generally tend to spam a little bit, so a lot of people know how to parry them. On top of that, your R2s are a little bit slow, so they can be parried or relatively easily dodged. That said, if you unlock while doing an R2 and your opponent's trying to dodge in circles around you, well, you can use that unlocked R2 to catch them. It's also good at catching people who are attempting to backstab fish. The one-handed attack isn't as good for it. The R1 when two-handing is not as good for it because it's just a straight chop, but because the R2s have a arc to their swing, it is going to be a little bit better. You can also use it to roll catch people who are flipping or rolling around you sideways, so that's helpful as well. You just have to time it properly, and that does take a little bit of practice, a little bit of getting used to. But once you get the hang of things, this is a phenomenal weapon to use. It's one that's extremely reliable, very good combos, decent damage, works very well on builds that are hybrid, and it's just a good time. It gives you a little bit of a change from the standard Bastard Sword or Claymore, a little bit more of a fancy looking moveset, and that's not a bad thing. Having a little variety in this game's PvP, even if it is just switching from one greatsword type to another, it helps. So, overall, fun weapon, would highly recommend if you're on the right kind of build for it. Similar in the way of the Man-Serpent greatsword, but dexterity based and a little bit more specialized with the moveset. That said, that's all I've got. There is one fight left following this one, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video, found it helpful in one way or another. If you have, then please like, subscribe, join the Discord, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys next time.